For the longest time, the story of the car's future seemed, well, simple. It was all about this unstoppable all-electric revolution, right? But suddenly it feels like that road ahead is full of detours and unexpected turns. So let's get under the hood and figure out where we're actually headed. And this is the question on everyone's mind, isn't it? The EV revolution, it was supposed to be a sure thing, completely inevitable. But now we're getting all these signals from the world's biggest car companies that suggest the whole industry is hitting a pretty major speed bump. So what's going on? Is this just a little hiccup, a temporary slowdown, or are we seeing a fundamental shift in the whole road to electric? Okay, so before we get into the problems, let's just take a step back and remember the dream. I'm talking about that powerful story that's been driving the auto industry for a solid decade. And look, this wasn't just a bunch of hype. The data, the numbers backing an all-electric world, they've been absolutely staggering. I mean, just take a look at the momentum in a place like India. We're talking about the world's third largest car market here. In just the first half of 2024, their EV sales shot up by 16% compared to the year before. That's not just regular growth, folks. That's what exponential adoption looks like. And this incredible growth is being pushed by some really ambitious goals. India is aiming for EVs to be 30% of all new car sales by 2030. That is a massive signal of commitment. But, and this is a big but, behind these exciting headlines, a very different story is starting to unfold in other parts of the world. Right, because while some markets are flooring it, hitting the accelerator hard, a lot of the world's most established, the big name automakers, they're suddenly pumping the brakes. And it's a reality check that is sending shockwaves through the entire industry. Here's how the market analysts at Rho Motion put it. They basically said the growth just isn't living up to the sky-high expectations. And because of that, automakers are being forced to react. And let's be super clear here. This isn't some minor tweak, a small course correction. This is a fundamental, ground-level shift in their entire strategy. And we're not talking about a few small niche players either. No way. We are talking about the absolute titans of the industry, the legacy giants from Detroit, from Germany, from Japan. Every single name you see here represents billions and billions of dollars in investment. And now, a major pivot away from the all-electric timelines they announced just a few years ago. So the big question is, why? Why the sudden hesitation? Well, it turns out the problem isn't really about the technology itself. It's about something much more down to earth. The very real, very practical concerns of the everyday drivers they need to win over. And just look at how practical these concerns really are. A huge global study by Deloitte found that the 5 biggest barriers for people have absolutely nothing to do with futuristic tech. It's all about the daily experience of owning one. Simple questions, right? How long does it take to charge? Will I run out of juice before I get there? Can I even afford one? Where the heck do I plug it in? In the West, these are the fundamental roadblocks. And all of this hesitation from buyers has, well, it's opened the door for an older technology to make a pretty stunning comeback. Yeah, I'm talking about the hybrid. Instead of being seen as old news, a lot of people are now seeing it as the perfect bridge, a practical step towards that all-electric future. Okay, so let's do a quick refresher on what we're talking about. A standard hybrid, that's an HEV. It uses its gas engine and even captures energy from braking to charge up a little electric motor. It boosts your efficiency, but you never ever have to plug it in. Then you've got the plug-in hybrid, the PHEV. That one has a much bigger battery that you do plug in to charge. This gives you a decent all-electric range for your daily commute, but you still have that trusty gas engine as a backup for long road trips. Best of both worlds? Kinda. And guess what? Consumers are responding exactly how you'd think they would. That same Deloitte study shows that interest in hybrids is gaining some serious momentum. And the reason is really simple. Hybrids solve the biggest easy headaches right now. You get no range anxiety, and you're not totally dependent on a public charging network that's, well, still a work in progress in a lot of places. And you know what they say, the money follows the interest. The global market for hybrids is now projected to absolutely surge to nearly $2 trillion by 2035. Think about that number. This isn't some small niche segment anymore. It's becoming a dominant economic force in the future of how we get around. But here's where it gets really interesting. While the West seems to be turning to hybrids as a bridge, there's this powerful counterstory unfolding. So let's head back to India, because they're showing the world a completely different way forward. They're just tackling the barriers to an all-electric future head-on. The contrast couldn't be more stark, really. The exact same issues that are causing automakers to pull back in Europe and North America, well, in India, they're being aggressively solved. And that's creating a completely different vibe in the market. So the big question is, how are they doing it? Well, it all starts with infrastructure. India has launched this absolutely massive government-led push to build a nationwide public charging network. I mean, just look at this map. They are literally blanketing the country and its major highways with charging points. They're designing the solution from the top down, not waiting for the market to do it. And the speed of this rollout is just staggering. Get this, between 2023 and 2025, the number of public charging stations across India quadrupled, a four-fold increase. That's not just slow and steady change. That, my friends, is a revolutionary leap. That brings the grand total to over 23,000 public charging stations and counting. By building the infrastructure first, before everyone goes out and buys an EV, the government is completely changing the calculation for potential buyers. It's a build it and they will come strategy. And the impact that has on how people think and feel about EVs, it's direct and it's powerful. Remember those top 5 concerns we talked about earlier? A visible, reliable charging network just systematically crushes things like range anxiety and that fear of having nowhere to plug in. And the results speak for themselves. With 91% of national highways covered, people are actually using the network. 77% of EV owners are now taking long road trips. A whopping 84% are using their EV as their main car, their daily driver, not just some weekend toy. This is what it looks like when you actually overcome those barriers to adoption in the real world. But of course, the road ahead is never perfectly smooth, is it? Even in a market that's booming like India, a simple policy change can create brand new challenges. And right now, there's a potential speed bump on the horizon, and it comes in the form of a tax adjustment. Okay, so here's the deal. Right now, small electric cars in India have a huge tax advantage. They pay just a 5% tax, compared to a whopping 29% for a similar gas-powered car. But there's a proposal to cut the tax on small gas cars down to 18%. If that happens, it's going to narrow that price gap pretty significantly. And that could make the cheaper, more familiar gas cars a lot more attractive, maybe even slowing down EV adoption in that really price-sensitive small car market. So what does this all mean? Where does it leave us? Well, it pretty clearly shows that this idea of one single, global, uniform transition to EVs, it's kind of a myth. The future of the car isn't one giant superhighway that everyone's driving on. No, it's more like a really complex network of different roads, each one shaped by local needs, consumer habits, and government policies. So will we see a pragmatic hybrid mix take over in the West, while countries like India manage to leapfrog straight to an all-electric world? Or is every single market just paving its own totally unique path? That right there is the great question on the road ahead.